Let's create our first repository using service AWS Code Commit. I will name it as CI/CD repo. We can also define description and tags here, but these are optional. So we can simply click on create and here you go. Your repository is successfully created. But if you notice this warning here, that you are signed in using a root account, you cannot configure SSH connections for a root account. And HTTPS connections for a root account are not recommended. Consider signing in as an IAM user and then setting up your connection. So that's true. We don't want to compromise our credentials. So why don't we just go and create an IAM user for our code commit repository? So here I am on IAM dashboard. Go to users, add users and give some username. Let's say CI/CD user. And I'm giving it both programmatic as well as management console access. And it will be having auto-generated password and that will be required to be reset at the first login. So now it is asking me to add this user to a group. So why don't we just create a new group of administrators? Let's call it admin and add administrator access to this. Rest everything we can leave default and click on create user. So it has created a user and these are the credentials for this user. So let's download this CSV with these credentials which contains access key ID, secret access key and password. So now we have created IAM user for our code commit repository. So now we are into a bit more secure space. Now if you click onto this CI/CD user and check security credentials, so you will see that apart from access keys, which we have just downloaded, we have two more options. SSH keys for AWS Code Commit and HTTPS Git credentials for AWS Code Commit. So these are the two ways to connect to your Code Commit repository. So we will set up HTTPS credentials for our repository, but if you want, you can also set up SSH keys for your repository. So let's generate credentials for our Git repository. All right. So now we have set up our Git credentials for this IAM user. Now let's set up our code commit repository. So the goal here is to take all these scripts available in this CI/CD demo folder, which I have downloaded from my O1 O3B branch. And you can also download the same to follow along. And for this, we will use the command line. So make sure that you have pre-installed Git on your local machine. So if we just go to our command line, I am into this CI/CD demo folder. If we just try to list the files, we can see these are the files available into this folder. And these files we want to upload to our code commit repository. So for this, we need to do a clone. And cloning a repository means copying whatever is in here. And as we know, like currently we have nothing in this repository. It is an empty repository because we have just created this. But we will still clone this in order to initialize it at our local machine. So if we go to this clone URL and click on clone HTTPS, it will copy this URL and go to the command prompt and say git clone and then paste the URL which we have just obtained. So it has given the warning like you appear to have cloned an empty repository, and that's perfectly fine because we know we have just created this repository. So if you try to list the content here, now you notice that we have got this folder here. Let's go to this folder and check the content. So here it is empty folder. There is nothing in it. So we have initialized it successfully. So now we have established our connectivity into our repository and using HTTPS. And now we want to push code to this repository.